Hello everyone, hope you guys are having a nice day. In this video, we'll talk about the Hall of Magic, chapter 2 of my book, Barocot and the Breath of Life. If you haven't read this chapter yet, or you haven't read the previous chapter, The Orphan and the Sorceress, you can go and read it on my website, tuva.com. There will be a link in the description of the video. So, the plot of this chapter came about because, if you watched last video, I said that I was using Harry Potter as the blueprint for the way I was writing everything. And so my original plan was that after Semra takes Barbara from the orphanage, she's going to go take Barbara to the magical community and buy for her that's her things for school and stuff like that, maybe a flying broomstick, her wand and all those kind of things. Then take her back to the orphanage until school resumes. But while after the first chapter, I started writing about, the whole Semra taking her to different shops and to buy different things. Then when I got to the part where Semra took her back to the orphanage, then I now wanted to start writing chapter 3. But I'm not like, okay, now that she's back in the orphanage, what we should be doing in this time where she's spending waiting for school to resume so she'll go back. The same way Hagrid took Harry to school to buy his things for school, then brought him back. Then when time came for school, Harry went to this thing. So like what we should be doing in that whole period, like I will not have to be going through the stress of coming up with different other offers in the orphanage and the caregivers and all those kind of talk. And I did not have that energy. So I said instead of, let's say the school will soon resume and she's waiting for that time, let's just make it that they're already in the middle of the session of the school. So she has to resume school immediately. You get? So that's how that whole taking her back to the orphanage cancelled. But at the same time, when I started writing it, and I saw that, okay, so in my book, I'm making it as, because like I explained in the last chapter, I wanted to do something where there is a status of secrecy that is keeping mere men separate from magicians. So I wanted to make that the villain of the disease obviously wants to bring down that status of secrecy. So it's like, if there's a status of secrecy, how come Semra came to the magical community, came to the mere men sectors and used magic on mere men and in the presence of mere men, and she's not going to be punished? So I decided that, okay, let me start showing an example of this status of secrecy now, action versus reaction. So I said, okay, this chapter is going to be about Semra going to the Hall of Magic to answer for her crimes. That's why I now went back to chapter 1 and tweaked some things. And I did that scene of Semra receiving a letter from the Council of Magic, telling her to come and answer for her crimes and all these things. So obviously, we ended the last chapter with Barbara taking hold of Semra's hand and teleporting to the magical community. And the next chapter, I think this chapter 2 began with them appearing in a magical community. And that whole description of this thing, I think I wrote it the way when Barbara lands, she falls forward. And the same, I studied that scene where Dumbledore told Harry to take his hand, let them teleport to go and meet Horace Slughorn in book 5 or book 6 of Harry Potter. Studied the way where I think the whole teleportation felt like, I think there was something about Harry feeling as if he was going through a rubber ring or a rubber band and he was fighting against his ear or something. So I want to do something. I cannot copy this one, but I want to do my own in a way where I have to describe how teleportation feels. So that's how it was like solving a puzzle, but finally I got it. So then they are standing, what Barbara says that they are standing in a wasteland. And the whole this of that wasteland thing is that originally I wanted to do my own this thing the same way that Harry Potter did his own, where the wizarding world exists together with the muggles. That's everyone is in England. The only thing is that the wizards are keeping themselves secret, and they have secret places like Diagon Alley and all those that exist in the Muggle side. The only thing the Muggles can't find it. That's what I wanted to do originally, but I don't know, eventually I started seeing that thing only works in Harry Potter because they're in olden days. And I don't think in this modern time where there is camera everywhere, somebody will go and walk into a wall and it's going to cause problems. So I say, let me just do that. They are entirely separate and they are in a time where after technology has been destroyed and everything. Because there was a quote I saw one time on I think Wikipedia when I was browsing about Einstein, where it says something like, Whereas I say something like, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but I know World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Okay, so that means if there is a war, World War III now is going to destroy everything. So every technology. So after that time, there will be no technology to fight wars with. That's why I decided to no camera, no nothing, all these kind of things. So that's when Semra will show Barbara how to see the magical community. For the magical community, originally it was supposed to be just something like, you know how England is, or you see pictures of England where there are like all these ancient buildings that were built 100 years ago that are beautiful, like castles, compared to all these modern day buildings you've seen in pictures of America, all these American movies where they are like the Netflix movies of movies where everything is the same and there is no joy you feel if you're looking at all this thing. Or like maybe you look at like a Catholic cathedral, all this kind, you will feel like this building is prestigious. So I wanted to give you all those like England vibe where there are all these big buildings like castles and all these kind of building. But I think early this year I was feeling like maybe that will not be unique enough. I wanted something that would be unique. It was when I was reading Naruto. I was like, the art of Konoha, if you see it anywhere, all those stone faces on the rock, all the way the buildings are, you will know it. That's why I now decided, okay, let me do it. Like every building is a tree house, or almost every building is a tree house, some kind of tree house or the other. Thought that maybe if someone sees something like that, everywhere is green, it's going to be very unique. Therefore, the Hall of Magic, now I always had it in mind for a long time. Now I got the inspiration from it from Town Hall 11 in Clash of Clans. If there's anyone who used to play Town Hall 11, you need to play Clash of Clans, you know Town Hall 11 now. I think is the best Town Hall after Town Hall 9. Because I used to play since 2015, 2016. So that was what I use. I will show the picture on my editing video. That's what I used to describe how my Hall of Magic will look. So after Barbara and Fema see it, they will now walk into the Hall of Magic. As they will first be in the passageway. And in that passageway, I used to, because it's very important for me, this idea of Barbara is smart, or she's very intelligent. I think I explained why in the last video. So I just used something to show that okay, Barbara has a photographic memory, because even in chapter 1 they went on to say something about Barbara has what can only be described as an unnatural memory. So I used this to show that okay, random people, same asked her what is that man, something like, is he a wizard or what is his rank? And because Barbara, remember, she has a clear picture of once she looks, she sees everything, and the picture is in her head, so she was able to remember that this man was wearing this kind of badge, so he's I think a sorcerer or something, first class sorcerer, second class sorcerer or something, I don't remember. Then that's all this ranking system. The reason of I think I even explained it in chapter 1. The reason for the ranking system is that normally there is always everybody, I think they used to use it synonymously, wizard, magician, warlock, witch, mage, sage. People used to use it interchangeably. And I did not like it. I wanted like a ranking system. So I said that everybody will be what's the name? Will be a magician. But then the ranking, there is wizard first, then sorcerer second, then mage, then sage, and the last one will be spellcaster. Then the ranking is Dwarfmon, that's the Dwarfmon badge, and Dwarfmon, that's Jaotmon, that's Jack of all trades, master of none. Because my idea is that if somebody is a wizard, it means that he's very, very good in every branch of magic, but maybe he's not as good in one branch of magic as maybe someone who only specializes in that particular branch of magic. So that person who specializes in that particular branch of magic will be better than the wizard in this particular thing, but then every other this thing combined is by far above you, that kind of thing. So eventually they move into the main chamber of the Hall of Magic, and that's when they would see the burning tree. Remember I said that where I was getting the idea of the magic system from. When I was building the magic system and all what I used was Harry Potter. Sorry, I used Naruto's magic system. That's the chakra and how they cast the different thing. I used it. I also used just my own head to form the different 7 branches of magic and all that. But the main original idea was from the Bible. And when I was reading the Bible, and got to Exodus and all those Moses parts. That's where the burning tree. Decided to bring the burning tree because in Harry Potter, I remember that part in Harry Potter. I think it was and the Order of the Phoenix where they took Harry to court or something to come to the Ministry of Magic to answer for his crime of using this thing, using Expecto Patronum to defend himself and Dudley. And then even the Ministry of Magic and Harry Potter, they don't have sense. Baba used magic to defend himself. And anyway, they called him to answer for the crime. And in the Ministry of Magic, guys, the way the thing was described, the way J.K. Rowling described it was very beautiful. She described like in the middle of this thing of the hall, there is a fountain. Then in that fountain, there is a golden statue of a wizard, a witch, an elf, and something else. I think it was a centaur. That's how she described it. I wanted something that would rival that because anytime I read something, if I see something in your work, I always want to do something better than it. So I was looking for what to be better. That's why I now got the burning tree in this thing. In that way, it's supposed to be a small bush, but my idea is that after a few thousand years of the thing growing, it would have been a massive tree. That's why I brought the burning tree into this thing. Then for everybody flying, that one is from Aladdin. I got flying carpet from Aladdin, but I decided to make it this thing. Decided to make it everywhere just for prestige for the Hall of Magic. You get that name Hall of Magic, you feel it. So while Barbara and Sam are working on these things, that's when Warlocks will come to meet them. And Warlocks, there is a Dwarfman ranking as Wizard, Witch, Sage, Mage. Normally Warlocks are like the police of this thing. They're like the auras. Auras are in Harry Potter, they're like the police of the magical community. That's when they came to meet Sam and Barbara. And the reason I wanted the Warlocks to come and meet them here is because I thought that it would have been lame if just Selma and Barbara just walked into the Hall of Magic and I'm here to answer for my crime or something would have been lame. So I said, okay, let me give Selma. Remember, my idea was that time when Harry was answering his crime and it was as if they were pinning Harry to the wall in that Ministry of Magic. Then suddenly Dumbledore just Albus, Wilfrid, Brian, Percival, Dumbledore, that was aura. I said, okay, I want someone to have aura when she's walking into this instead of to just, that's why I made the Warlocks take her away. Then Barbara was, she first put Barbara on the carpet, so Barbara was flying. And I remember I was looking for how will I, because I was like, okay, Barbara climbed on the carpet and fly. It would have just been easy to describe, but I wanted to describe the feeling. You know that when you want to describe something, so that if someone is reading it, you feel like, yes, I feel this thing, I understand this thing you are saying, I understand this thing. I understand this thing, this character is going to, that kind of thing. So I describe how will it feel if someone is on a carpet? Is it just going to be something like easy? Because I remember there was a time in my year 4 in school or something, my guys were teaching me how to use all these skating shoes, that have one, not those ones that have 4. You just have one straight line on this thing. And if I started to stand, I would be funny. I was reason that I thought I could ride bicycle. I thought that since I can ride bicycle, this one will be easy to ride. But if I stand, what will be doing learn for? What to learn for? So I now decided to use that kind of feeling. And around that time, I rewatched. There was something I used to do anytime I want to write something, and I don't know how to describe it, whether it's a particular paragraph or a particular line or a particular scene. I want to look for a book or a movie that a similar scene is inside. Then if I read that entire book and see that scene, I'll come back to the scene. Then I'll analyze how that author wrote it to use for my own. So what I did when I used that skating board design, I now had to remember Iron Man. So I went back and watched Iron Man 1, I think. There is a time where he was learning how to use that's when he was still creating the Iron Man suit. And I was learning how to use the flying listen of the shoe. Where he was on there, he was like trying to hover before they told carry him and he now like the jet engine now carry him and hit on the wall. So that's why I think I described it as she felt like a scientist testing out his newly invented hover boots or something. I don't remember. So after this, she now starts flying. Then during the flight, I described something like it felt like many dark, dreadful days or so something. Maybe I'll put the listen on the screen. But that thing was, there was a scene in Harry Potter, I think it was book 1 or something, where the first time when Harry was flying, it's either the first time Harry was flying with this thing when that Mrs. Filch or something brought them to teach them how to use broomstick before where that the time when McGonagall now came and put Harry on the Quidditch team, or it would have been the time when Harry was using flew on the hippogriff or something. But that's when he was flying, and Harry described it as, or J.K. Rowling described it as, after many dark sunny days or something in the air. That's why I now use that to describe my own. But since unlike Harry was enjoying the flight, so J.K. Rowling described it as after many bright days or something. So me, I described my own as it felt like many dark, dreadful days. Since how she's scared. So when she got to the floor where the Hall of Magic chamber is, and she entered in the corridor, and that's when she meet the Grand Warlock. The thing about the Grand Warlock is that he and Semra are like, I think every single story is always nice if every story has a hint of romance or something. And since Barocott is not someone who cares about romance, the Grand Warlock, his own case, that he and Semra were in love before Barocott's mother died, or when Barocott's mother died, and since she's Semra's best friend, Semra became depressed and whatever when people become depressed. So she now ended her relationship with him, and since then they have been separate. But now that Semra has spent all this time getting healthy and all that, getting healthy mentally and physically, and she has now gone and gotten Barocott where, this is that her friend's daughter, and Barbara looks exactly like that her friend. So it's helping her. So she wants to try to rekindle that the feelings they had for one another 16 or 17 years ago. So that's his. So he sees Barocott, talks to Barocott about how, I have to be adding little foreshadowing about to lead Barocott that might help her get to who her father is. That's one of the main mysteries of this story. Why Semra won't tell her about her father and why her father hasn't come to get her. So we'll tell her something like, you look just like your mother, but your hair is from your... Obviously, Barbara will understand that he wanted to say her father, but he stopped. After that, we'll take her into the Council of Magic. Everyone will turn and look at her because, obviously, Semra, her mother, and their other friend were very popular. And so, the events that now led that their other friend betrayed them and helped Sadagrass try to kill her mother and kidnap Barocott, made them even more popular. So now everyone look, this is that girl that Barocott that Sadagrass tried to kidnap. So whenever I looks at her, she will walk up to the distance. And coincidentally, the place where she will go and find a seat is where a woman is holding. The free seat is the seat of a child that her mother is holding her. And that woman is actually going to be very important to the plot because that's Semra and Barocott's mother's friend that betrayed them. Is actually that woman's sister. Although their friend is dead, but she was that woman's sister, so she will be important to the plot later on. So Barocott will talk to the woman, ask her for the seat, then she will sit. The woman will give her the seat. So she will sit down, then she and the woman's son will start talking, and that's when she will notice that the woman's son and the woman are the only people in the whole Hall of Magic that are not wearing a Dwarfmon badge, which means they are either not magicians or something. They are either not, maybe they are not magicians, but they're in the magical community, something like that. So she and the boy will talk. The boy will tell her about why they are here. They are here for their father's hearing and all that. Then, I think later on, the Grand Councilman will walk into the listen to start the trial. And the Grand Councilman, remember I told you that name, Wizbuzard I wanted to use. I now decided to give it to the Grand Councilman. So his name is Nicholas Wizbuzard. So when the trial, after he comes inside seat, we now explain that he's actually he's actually a wizard. And my district, I don't think this is still the theory. But originally when I was thinking of all the Dwarfmon badges design, Semra's one is a hand holding a wand. The way I described it in book 1 is, in chapter 1 is a fiendish fist called around the wand, lit at the tip by a burning blue flame. So his own is actually just a demon's face, holding with his mouth open and his tongue is fire. And my description for that was that's back then. It's not the case now. I've changed it, but back then, what I wanted to do is that the first wands were created when four demon brothers went to a burning bush. That's after Moses went. They went and they picked up sticks. They broke sticks out of the burning bush. That's why these things. So all those four demons, one of them put this in his mouth, one of them held the stick, and another one hold. Like when you see all the different badges, you know. But that was my original theory for how the first ones were created. But I've changed it. I changed it since. I think I explained the nudity of this in chapter 4. But that's how I got the design for his Drakmon badge, where he's going to be his face of a demon with a tongue of fire. So this thing, the reason why I wanted to do this is these people were not. That's this woman that I say is the friend of Semra that betrayed them, her sister. She wasn't supposed to exist. You know, in chapter 1, 2, and 3, I was still in the process of creating my thoughts, and finally, nothing was finalized. It was when I finished writing chapter 3 that I now plotted everything from beginning to end, even going past book 1, book 2, book 3. It was when I finished writing chapter 3, but when I was still writing this chapter 2, while I was still plotting it, I don't know anything. My mind wasn't sure of anything, so I was just still. So it was when I got to the Hall of Magic, I now decided that, okay, I don't want Semra's trial to be first. I want there to be a trial before Semra's own, so that in that trial, the Council of Magic will convict that person and send the person to this Vineyard, so that's the magical prison. And the reason is, you know, for tension. Now, if somebody read and say, okay, they have actually imprisoned this man who seemed like he's actually innocent, they imprison, what will they do to Semra? Because I know that later on, if you keep reading, maybe by chapter 3 or chapter 4, you find out that Semra is too important and too powerful to the magical community. So that not that she's powerful in the sense of she can beat anybody, but she's powerful in the sense of her potions are what's keeping. Is like if they imprison her and her potions stop working, every sector, both the transportation, medicine, every sector of the magical community will collapse. So she's too important. They can't touch her. The thing is, this is just to bring her here to threaten her or something. So that's when I decided that, okay, there will be another trial before Semra to make the readers feel as if maybe something is going to happen to Semra or something happened to this man. So I said, okay, let me make it that this man, his family will also be watching him. And so Bara will sit with his family, because it's when you are with his family and Bara is seeing the fear and tension in his family that the readers should be able to translate that fear and tension to their own selves. That's why I now decided that, okay, see Bara is sitting there, let me make them more important. That's how the whole thought process came. So finally, I think there will be certain different things that will be important, like in among their family. But let's just go on. After the man is sentenced to prison because of his crime, and another thing, like I said, I wanted to make this important. Like later on, the thing that, because the one issue is that there was a woman that was being harassed by a group of men. Then the man came and he saved her with magic. Yeah, so that woman will become important later on. Anyway, after they sentence him as guilty, the warlock will come and take him to go to Vineyard. Then what's the name? Semra will now walk into this thing. And you know that vibe that Dumbledore had when I was walking into this thing to come and save Harry from the Ministry of Magic. That's what I wanted to give her. So, but just to put icing on the cake, I made that the boot that every criminal will have to step into while you're listening to your trial, she will flick around and turn it into a sofa chair or something, a club chair, and sit down. Then, after she sat down, I don't really know if there's anything that is important. We'll just go over her crimes that she did and the few she committed and everything. So now, even the one of the few she's supporting Salamangreas. But what's really important is that one of the reasons that the few she's supporting Salamangreas was because that her friend betrayed them and helped Salamangreas. And it's important because Semra and that's Barroco's mother and that Barroco's friend were Simex friends. And in my book, Simex friends, later I explain Simex friend, but no man, because if a Simex friend does something, they cannot do it without the consent of the next person, of their other Simex friends. So if you, in their mind, Semra had to have given her permission to help Salamangreas. And so if that one can help Salamangreas, Semra can also be helping Salamangreas. It's just, maybe I don't know how to explain it out till we get to chapter 3 that you understand. Anyway, so after the trial, after Semra ends the trial by herself, she and Bara will now be walking out of the Hall of Magic, and that's when they will meet this thing. They will meet the Grand Warlock, just to show those sparks of romance. Oh God. Just to show the sparks of romance and to foreshadow, like I said, remember in last video I said something about how I brought some chapters that are in book 2. I brought them into book 1. So, and the first chapter that is in book 2 that I brought into book 1, I put it in chapter 3. So I now brought this thing to set it up in chapter 1. So I'm following it up. That's when he came to talk to her about, because those men that came to ambush them in chapter 1, Semra, after she sent all of them away, she captured one and sent him to the warlocks. So he's here to talk to her about it and how they are questioning the man and they haven't gotten anything from the one. And because they can't read his mind, because it's illegal to read somebody's mind in the magical community without a warrant. So they are still trying to get the warrant, but we'll update her when they get the listing. Now also gives Semra something to give Barbara, which is going to be her listing. So after Semra and the Grand Warlock talks, they will now leave. Then it's why Barbara is coming down from the carpet. She's in her mind, she's wondering, she's taking into account the things she's found out about Semra's friend, and she's, I have to remind the readers things that are important, like Barbara needs, why is Sadaglas after Barbara Court? Why was he after her when he was originally after her? And why is he still after her? What of her father? Why haven't her father come to get her? Who is her father? Why didn't, just all the mysteries I still have to remind the readers. So I just use this opportunity to remind them. So when Barbara came, when she and Semra reached the ground floor of the Hall of Magic, that's when Michael, that's that boy who she met in the Council of Magic chamber. When she met him, her and he talked about different things. So now he has come to meet them. I remember he's the only person, he and his mother are the only people who don't have a Dortmund badge in the entire Hall of Magic. So that means, because he cannot use magic, so he came down to beg Semra to teach him how to do magic, which is not possible. It doesn't make sense. But it is that boy, his arc was actually inspired by Sokka in Avatar. When Sokka came and knelt down to Master Pyanda or Master Paku, came and knelt down to the master and told him to please teach him how to use a sword. Yeah, so, and that's because originally I had a plan. This boy, Michael, he was supposed to be the main character in After All. But it's when I started writing After All, I started planning, and that's why his age doesn't really match. So I had to make another plan for him. Because originally, After All, at least a part of it, the main character in it, because there is a mission he has to undergo. So he cannot just undergo that mission with his own power of a man, that kind of thing. So I now got his inspiration from Captain America, the First Avenger, that maybe there will be a potion Semra will create that will turn him into a superhuman, that kind of thing. So that's what I was working for him. Anyway, so we'll come to beg Semra to teach part to learn, that he wants to learn magic, because Semra will tell him it's not possible and all that, but I should find a way, or should talk I don't know exactly, you can read the chapter. So after that, normally this was where the chapter was supposed to end. That Semra and Barbara will leave the Hall of Magic, then Barbara will take her and then they will disappear. But then when I decided to bring that chapter I brought from book 2 into book 1, and I saw that I'm putting into chapter 3, and I saw that chapter 3 was now too long. And I said, okay, let me take some parts, that's the first part of chapter 3, and bring it to chapter 2. And that's why I now continue. They now leave the Hall of Magic. They'll call a cab, then it's inside that carriage, I say cab. It's inside that carriage that Semra will now give Barbara Court, that's her smart scroll. Even a smart scroll is like the magical community owned version of phone. And the reason I came up with that idea was because I think the first place I saw this was in a YouTube video. I think it was a Murphy Napier YouTube video about Harry Potter, where she was saying something like, why is it that wizards don't used to use telephone? Because it's by far faster than owls. Yes, so I was like, okay, that's true. Why don't they actually use telephone? It doesn't make any sense. So I was like, okay, I have to give my own magicians their own version of telephone. That's why I now came up with a smart crown. I've forgotten where exactly I saw this thing. I think it was Witcher. Where there's something where, is it that Witcher or Merlin? I'm not sure. Where there's something where they'll write a letter. They'll write something in a letter, then they'll burn it. Or I think it's Vampire Diaries. It was Bonnie or something. When Bonnie will write something on a letter, she will not burn it. It will not appear in the person's hand that she wants to send it to. Then it happened again in Legend of the Seeker. Because Legend of the Seeker, apart from Vampire Diaries, Legend of the Seeker is like the biggest thing that inspired the world of Vengeance and Redemption. So in Legend of the Seeker, I think there was an episode where they locked Kara and Mother Confessor in a tomb. But there is a scroll in that tomb, and there is a scroll with Richard and Zedekos, where if they write with blood on that scroll, the thing will be translated to with blood on the scroll in Kalen, and that's how they are communicating. So that's why I now got and combine everything into like, okay, they'll have their own phones, and that phone is this smart scroll with ink and everything. And I even came up with internet. The own version of the internet is the ink jar. Then as for them is all this ink bomb, man. Let's came up with all this. And so when someone gives her the smart scroll and she registers and all that, you will now reach the Fountain of Elijah Magic Net. And that's because in the market there is in the middle of the, because in the beginning of chapter 2, in the beginning, there was a description where I described this thing, the magical community and all the tree houses and everything. I said there is a fire in the background that is reaching up to the sky or something. And that's from the Fountain of Elijah Market, because there is a fountain where there is stones and then there is water pouring in, but the fire that is in the stones is still burning and going up to the sky. This fire, the fire that is burning. That's why I named it Fountain of Elijah Market. So I think before they walked up into the one shop, this thing came and hit her. That's when I first introduced a warlock, and the warlock would become important later on. But before then, she and Sema were walking to into the one shop. Then they'll try to get a wand, but after everything, she'll find out that she can't actually get a wand. And my whole this is also one of the mysteries. Why can't she? Why is it that Salagrass wants her? Why did he want her back then? Why did he still want her till now? What's up with her father? Why doesn't he want her? Why hasn't he come to get her and all that? And why hasn't Sema told her about it? Then why can't she use a wand? And obviously, all those things will be connected. Or that's the main thing for us to go to the one shop and find out that, okay, Baboko can't wield the wand, which is unusual for every magician. So when Sema tells the wand maker to make for Baba a special wand using her blood, that's when they will leave the design, and then I think that's where the chapter will end. So in the next video, we'll talk about chapter 3, and the same way like this, I'll tell my mindset and all that. Then please like the video and leave your comments. Then like the video, leave your comments, share to your friends. Then you can go and read Bible quotes. You can read chapter 1, read this chapter, and then you can see read chapter 3 and chapter 4 on the website. I'll also start posting chapter 5 again. So goodbye. Continue with your nice day.